Hello, and welcome to Tax Central. I'm your host, Michelle Alexander, and I'm happy to be here again with you. This is the second in a host of series of tax shows that we hope that you'll stay tuned for. We call it Tax Central because it is your best resource in tax accuracy. The last show, I was here all by myself doing what I thought was necessary to bring you into what you need to have to help manage your tax life. But today, I have in the studio with me a friend and colleague, Mr. James Carter. Thank you, James, for being here. Okay, yes, all right. And James is an accountant and a bookkeeper and the person that we use in other areas, which we'll talk about in a second. But, you know, the focus of today's show is helping you to identify not only how to manage your tax life, but also to help you identify the difference between factual and myths. So we named the show Tax Facts and Tax Myths. But before we get into that, let me have James tell you a little bit about what he does and how we connect. So I'm going to let him talk to you for a second.
Hello, my name is James Carter. I represent Books and Balances, professional bookkeeping and accounting services. What we do is we perform outside the box accounting services. We actually prepare the books in order to be ready for the income tax preparation at the end of the year. So quarterly returns, day-to-day bookkeeping, things of that nature that will actually get all the accounts in order for the one report, which is an income tax return.
Which is so important. So that means that you don't just sit down and prepare or start filling in the little blocks on a tax form. You really have to have a picture of what your tax life looks like.
Oh, yes.
Whether you're an individual or whether you're a business, you need to know what you look like so that you can properly prepare that tax return. And when I say properly, I know a lot of people want to sit down and do this themselves. If it's a simple return, perhaps.
Yes.
But if you're involved in a number of financial aspects, working, running a business, investments, retirements, etc., probably want to understand how it all blends together before you try to put that tax return together.
Oh, yes.
And it's always a good idea to use a resource. So that's where we come in. We are your best resource in tax accuracy. So don't go away. We've got some really good information we want to share with you today. So don't go away. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back. This is Tax Central. I'm your host, Michelle Alexander, and I'm here today with my colleague and co-host, James Carter.
Thank you.
So before we went to commercial, we were talking about various ways that individuals need to what they need to do or that they need to know how important it is to manage their tax life.
Yes.
So some of the things that we want to share with you today involves what we've called tax facts and tax myths. So we want to look at some of what people believe that they can actually do.
Yes.
And they call it factual, and we know for a fact that it's not. So, you know, it's unfortunate. I get a lot of people who walk into my office and say, well, you know, I'd like to I know I can carry my expenses for 3 years. Is that a fact or a myth?
Well, it kind of depends on the expense.
Exactly. Well, it also depends on It really, it depends on the explanation and interpretation of carrying things for 3 years.
Yes, agreed.
So what does that mean? Does that mean that if I have $30,000, if I'm a business and I have $30,000 worth of expenses for 2013, and I don't need to claim $30,000 worth of expenses, I can put them on my 2014 tax return?
Yes.
Is that a fact or a myth? That's a myth.
Yes, it really is.
That's really a myth, right? What you cannot do is claim expenses in 1 year if you have not paid for those expenses in that same year.
Right.
Okay. So when someone makes a statement, I can carry expenses for 3 years, what that means is you can go back and amend the year that you want to put those expenses in, as long as you've paid for those expenses in that year.
That is correct.
Okay, so, but you'd be surprised how many people believe, and they want to argue with you. They want to
Yes.
argue you down. I can do this. I'm like, no, you can't do that. Okay, all right. So that's just an example of what the information and how it kind of gets convoluted.
Yes.
You know, with people believing that they can do these things and they really can't. Another fact or myth is, example, if I owe the IRS $100,000, I can pay them a much lesser amount and then be done with it. Fact or myth? Okay. If you owe the IRS $100,000, you can make them an offer to say, well, I can't pay this bill. Will you accept $5,000 as a payoff? And if you meet all of the requirements that they're going to ask you, and if you go jump through all the hoops that you're going to jump through in order to make something like that happen, it could happen. However, IRS will look at your ability to earn money in the future, okay?
Yes.
And if they feel as though you have earning capacity,
To pay that debt.
right, so they will amortize the balance. And you know what amortization is. It's like a mortgage, okay, over a period of time. They will amortize the balance of what you owe. And at some point in the next 50 years, you work and your income begins to roll again, they're going to want that money.
Yes, definitely.
So you have to know, you can't just say, and I know we see all these commercials where, you know, yeah, I owe the IRS $100,000 and I paid them 20 and that's it. You know, you can't believe everything you see on television anyway. So, you know, the best thing is to get a full and complete understanding and explanation and get the facts and leave the myths to television,
Right.
basically. Okay. You've got some things you want to talk about, or?
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
okay.
I mean, of course, if you owe the IRS $100,000, we definitely want to work with you.
Oh, of course. Absolutely, absolutely.
Actually, just a couple other things. Things to look out for, you know, when setting those things, when setting those expectations for your tax life, and judging between the tax myths and the tax facts. Some events within your year can actually bring those things to surface. Certain individuals that may work as you were saying, have a regular job and also, you know, are an independent contractor or work for themselves, or an individual that may experience a large increase in their income throughout the year. That, you know, actually after a certain point in the year, these are things that are events that would cause one to maybe reconsider or look into those tax facts and myths.
Absolutely.
Because these are things that'll, you know, kind of come and get you at the end when you're really not prepared for it.
Right.
college students are the biggest ones who, you may graduate at a certain point and then you get that job, August, September, and then there's a huge increase in your income. That, you almost want to plan for that, in that you may want to consider talking to your tax advisor or maybe an accountant such as myself to really look at, forecasting what your tax liability could be by the end of the year. Just small examples, things like that too. Things that you would want to, maybe, should I ask a question? That's the first time to ask that question of someone.
Right, okay. All right, so we have, we're available. One of the things that you have access to us on a 12-month basis.
Yes.
We're available all year. And we've got a Facebook presence, and I believe they're going to run our Facebook name across the bottom of the screen somewhere during the show. One of the things that we are also doing this year is reaching out to other communities. By that I mean, now as you'll be able to see, our Facebook presence is reaching out to the Hispanic community. We've got translations in Spanish of all of the services that we offer, and very shortly there'll be 2 or 3 other translations. There'll be one in French and one in Chinese, and one in another language. Pittsburgh is a growing area.
Yes, it is.
And the area is growing with people who speak something other than English fluently, and I know that it helps when they can read it in their own language,
Yes.
as opposed to trying to understand another language. Just like it's easier for me to read this in English than it is to read it in German. I would be like, okay, all right. So look for it, down the line.
Yes,
Somewhere
definitely.
between now and the end of the summer, the other translations should be up and out on our Facebook. Okay, so we're available all year, and because we are available, you have the opportunity to come in and sit down and talk with us and determine how to proceed with your tax life for the balance of 2014. Today is April 17th, 2014. When this show airs, it'll be sometime in May 2014, which will still give you, a good 6 months, 6-7 months in order to put things in order. And you might say, well, we just did tax returns. Well, you're going to do them again in 7 months. If you were happy with what spilled out for you this year, okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the same way.
Agreed.
There are things that change within IRS, within the tax community every year. Like, for example, this year, and this has nothing to do with us but it did have an impact on you. This was the first year that IRS facilities did not prepare income tax returns.
Yes.
That had a huge impact on people because they had to now seek out other ways to get their tax return prepared. There was the opportunity for some of them to use VITA centers. Those are the volunteer income tax assistance centers, and there were opportunities for them to go downtown, come into downtown to the city county building and get a tax return prepared, but a lot of you had to pay to get your tax returns prepared. So I know that there were some of you that came to me, and I tried to work with you as the best way I knew how in order to help you get things done. So there are things like that change each and every year.
Exactly.
A lot of the services that are up between January and April are now down. You can't call them and get services, but we are available all year. Okay, so we want you to know that, and we want you to be able to. We want to reach out to you. We want you to contact us so that we can help you. A lot of times you might think that, well, I don't have a whole lot. I don't do a whole lot, but even with that, you're a part of the economy. You're a part of a financial network called democracy in the United States,
Yes.
capitalism, and so forth and so on. So so there are aspects of what happens that can impact you. It just depends on. It can impact you. Just depends on what it is you may be wanting to do for yourself, or feeling like you wished you could do this for yourself, or
Right.
whatever. So, it never hurts to just pick up the phone and ask. So, or, we're located in downtown Pittsburgh. You can easily find our address on our Facebook. Okay. All right. So we're talking about tax facts and tax myths. But before we're getting ready to go to commercial, we're also going to talk to you today about scams, tax scams, because tax season is over. So the crooks are not asleep.
No.
They're not sitting back waiting until next January.
They're here year-round as well.
They're here year-round as well, exactly. And they are right now trying to figure out how to dupe you out of not only your 2013, which we just had 2013 tax refund, but if they can do that, then they can set you up for getting your 2014 and your 2015 money, and they use it in a variety of ways. There's a scam going on right now where they're sending out emails saying, this is a court notice. Because I've gotten, I don't know, 10 or 15 of them, but I'm also a paralegal, so I know there's no way that somebody's going to send an email and say, oh, this is a court notice, you have to be in court, open this. Yeah, delete, delete, delete,
Exactly.
delete. And so anything that looks like it's unbelievable to you, it probably is, don't open it. If they're sending it by email, if someone is calling you and asking you to identify your personal information, your social security number, your date of birth, things like that, no one who is a legitimate taxing agency is going to do that.
Exactly.
No one. So whatever you do, do not. And they're forceful. They
Very.
make you believe that they are the IRS. I had a client call me, and she said that she just got a phone call from the IRS telling her that if she didn't pay X number of thousands of dollars, they were going to come take her house. And I said, that's not how IRS operates. I
Right.
said, so give me that phone number. And so she gave me the number. And when I called the number, the gentleman on the other side said, this is the IRS. Well, that's not how they answer the phone either. So
Exactly.
I said, oh, I said, that's really, he said, this is the IRS. I said, really? I said, well, my name is Michelle Alexander. I said, and I actually sit on the board of directors for IRS. Click, and he hung up, just like that. So naturally, I turned the phone number over to the fraud unit of Internal Revenue and let them deal with it. And that's the other thing. If you're getting email or telephone calls,
Yes.
or even letters that may look like, oh, I don't know if this is IRS or not, check it out.
Yeah.
You can definitely bring it to us, and we'll
Exactly.
find out whether or not that letter is legitimate. Or you can take it directly to the IRS office in downtown Pittsburgh. They're located on the first floor of the Federal Building at the corner of Grant and Liberty Avenues. Check it out. Just don't respond. And if they insist and they insist and they insist, and they keep sending you things and calling you and so forth, chances are it's a scam.
Right.
Check it out. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself, because this is your life. This is your life. Absolutely. This is your financial life. And they know that the tax preparation is the largest, single, most important financial transaction that every American makes every year.
Yes.
We're
exactly.
talking billions and billions of dollars. They know this, so they're coming after you. Okay, so don't go away. We've got a lot more to talk about. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back. This is Tax Central. I'm Michelle Alexander, your host, here today with James Carter. And before I go into a further discussion of tax facts and tax myths, I just want the audience to know that James, we call him Carter. His name is James Carter, but he's always Carter to us. He is actually the person who handles and audits the balloting and for the judges for the Miss Pittsburgh pageant.
Yes.
So as you all know, I own and produce Miss Pittsburgh, and I know you know this because we have the Miss Pittsburgh Showcase that we're doing now with our reigning queen, and I've been on the Shirley Douglas show, and the girls have been on the show. Well, James is the person who gets the ballots. So when you're watching shows like Miss America and Miss USA, and the guys walk out in their tuxedos with the envelopes for the ballots because they've counted all of that. Well, this is our tuxedo guy. He's the one who walks out with all of that. So
Yes.
I'm really glad you're here with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we went to commercial, we were talking about some of the scams and some of the things that people are doing, bad people are doing to try to shake out your money and steal your identity. I just had a client that I had to do an identity theft affidavit for him just today.
Wow.
I prepared his tax return probably 6 days ago. And 2 days after I prepared it, he called me frantic because he had gotten a letter. It was a legitimate letter. It did come from IRS, but we checked it out. He bought me the letter so that I could check it out to make sure that it was a legitimate IRS letter. And someone had filed a tax return using his Social Security number, thinking that they were going to get whatever refund, falsifying information. What they didn't know is that this gentleman is a small business, owns a small business, and all he ever does is pay. So he never gets a refund, so they're not going to get anything.
Right.
But it's the start of them trying to get into his bank accounts and other investments that he may have,
Right.
And so forth. So when you recognize that someone is out there doing that, IRS does have a system. They do have a method for dealing with all of that. They've created a form called Identity Theft Affidavit, where you complete this form. They then give you a number that's something other than your Social Security number, which identifies to them that you are the authentic person, because the thief is using your Social Security number.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it does work, and they have had some success in getting refunds returned to people from others who have done the wrong thing. There are a couple of new scams that I want to warn you about, and I just got these from IRS. There is a phone scam that continues to target people across our nation including immigrants, people who come into the country and they get a Social Security card and they're ready to do their thing, go to work, go to school, or whatever the case may be. And you have these folks who are trying to take their tuition money out of the banks,
Yes.
and so forth. They've had there's a phone scam where the thief poses as the IRS and makes this unsolicited phone call, much like the one where the guy said, "This is the IRS."
Yes.
Okay. So they tell the person on the other end that they owe taxes to IRS, and then they demand that you pay this money, or we're going to throw you in jail, we're going to deport you, because they're targeting immigrants. They'll tell them, we're going to deport you, or we're going to suspend your driver's license, or we're going to suspend your business. Well, first of all, nobody picks up the telephone and says that they're going to do all these things. You don't get that kind of thing done to you by a telephone call.
Exactly.
Okay, there's a process. In this country, it's the judicial process or a statutory process that takes place before any of those things, can happen. So if somebody is calling you and telling you that they're going to annihilate you financially and just do all these things to them, ask them for a phone number.
Yeah.
Say, let me have a phone number. What's your name? Where are you located?
Documentation.
Ask them the questions. Don't let them put you on the defense. You be the quarterback. You throw the ball.
Right.
Ask them, well, really? Okay. And if they give you all the information, or maybe you could record the conversation or something, and then send it to the FBI. You can do that. They have a unit where they will receive this information. If it's an IRS scam, you can call the fraud unit of the IRS. And I'm sorry, there is a particular number, but if you go on to irs.gov, irs.gov, and type in fraud unit, it should bring up information that tells you where to call their unit, how to report a scam that's going on, or some type of fraud or whatever. So don't let them intimidate you out of what's yours, because they will try to do that.
And they try to do it quickly too.
And they try to they try to do it quickly. Sometimes they're nice about it, and they'll say something like, well, we can work with you, you can pay us back, and you can do it electronically. I can take your card number over the phone. Please don't do that.
Exactly.
Please, but some people will just say, oh, let me pay them because I just don't want any trouble out of the IRS. Well, let me just explain to you that they're people like we're people. You're made of dust. Carter's made of dust. I'm made of dust. They're not made out of gold dust. We're all made out of dust, okay? They can't do any more to you than you allow them to. So keep control. Again, managing your tax life, I truly believe, will help you to become empowered so that when people come at you with dumb stuff, you can sit back and say, no, because Michelle and James told me not to do that. You'll have enough information and you'll be educated so that you can be a witness to the truth. You can combat against, all of this that's going on, and it's not going to stop. That's why we continue to sit before you, because as we do, somebody tonight is probably trying to figure out how to get us to stop coming before you, but it's not going to work either. All right, so we have all kinds of scams, and let's see, which one is this? Oh, people, when they call you, they use fake names and fake IRS badge numbers. And sometimes they do send bogus email and bogus letters, like what happened to my client. And this was literally Monday, the 15th, was when they called and said, yeah, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay. It just so happened that he is the victim, unfortunately, of identity theft. Somebody actually did file a tax return before I could get his filed. But, it just happened, so his return's going to be okay. He's going to be okay.
Oh, good.
And they'll catch the person. They always catch them. I don't understand.
Because they never want to stop.
Because they never want, right, they don't know when to stop, for sure. Okay. So just beware, be careful, be leery of if it sounds like, you know, it's life-threatening and it's not coming from a heart surgeon who says it's life-threatening, then it's, you know, let's check it out. You have the time to check it out.
It's always.
Always take the time to check it out. Okay. All right, so that's it about scams and bells and whistles. So now we'd like to talk to you about managing your tax life. There are a number of things that will help you to identify best practices. In our line of work, there are things that we do that we call best practices, which means there are lots of different ways to do something. But if we look at method A, method B, method C, method D, we then come to a conclusion that probably method B is going to give us the better result than method A. So
Right.
we use method B and we call it the best practice. It doesn't mean that you can't use method A or method C. It's
Right.
just that you're probably going to do a whole lot more than you need to get to method B. So we just say method B is the best
Best practice.
practice. Well, it works the same way with managing your tax life. Okay, so there are some things that we're going to begin to talk with you about in terms of how to identify the best methods to manage your tax life. And again, we're not going to go into detail because we don't have enough time. But you can reach us, we're available. You can
Always.
reach us, you can go onto Facebook and find out how to communicate with us. Now that doesn't mean